Story 1. The rain fell in relentless sheets, pummeling the roof of the small cottage with an unyielding ferocity. In the heart of the dense forest, the cottage stood alone, surrounded by towering pines that swayed and groaned in the violent gusts of wind. The storm had been raging for hours, its ominous howls melding with the cracks of thunder that split the night sky. Inside the cottage, a group of friends had sought refuge, unaware of the horrors that awaited them in the tempestuous darkness. Celia, a spirited young woman with an affinity for adventure, was the first to notice the peculiarities of the night. As she peered out of the foggy window, her breath quickened at the sight of a shadowy figure darting between the trees, disappearing into the inky blackness. Her heart raced, but she dismissed the sighting as a trick of the mind, a product of the storm's unsettling ambience. "Did anyone else see that?" Celia asked, her voice laced with apprehension. Her companions, Sarah, James, and Mark, exchanged concerned glances. They, too, had sensed an eerie energy enveloping the cottage, an intangible force that seemed to seep through the cracks in the walls. "Maybe it's just the storm playing tricks on us," Sarah suggested, her voice quivering slightly. Mark, the pragmatic skeptic of the group, scoffed. "There's no such thing as ghosts or demons, only overactive imaginations." But even his rationality wavered as the faint sound of distant whispers snaked through the howling wind. The whispers seemed to call to them, urging them to step outside into the unforgiving night. James, the most reserved of the group, rose from his seat. "I'm going to check outside. Maybe there's someone in trouble." Celia's hand shot out, grasping his wrist with an unexpected urgency. "Don't go out there. It's not safe." But James gently shook her off and ventured into the tumultuous darkness, his silhouette vanishing into the rain-drenched forest. The others waited anxiously, their eyes fixed on the door, their ears straining to discern any sign of his return. Minutes ticked by, elongating into an unbearable stretch of time that seemed to distort their perception of reality. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the night, piercing the howling winds and echoing through the cottage. Celia and Sarah clutched each other, their eyes wide with terror. Mark stumbled to his feet, his face drained of color. "We have to find him," he declared, his voice barely audible above the din of the storm. With a sense of foreboding hanging heavy in the air, they armed themselves with flashlights and ventured into the downpour, the rain lashing at their faces as they struggled to navigate the labyrinthine paths of the forest. The trees seemed to morph into grotesque shapes, their gnarled branches reaching out like sinister claws. Each step felt like an eternity, and the whispering voices grew louder, a cacophony of sinister murmurs that enveloped them in a suffocating shroud of dread. As they pressed on, the beams of their flashlights flickered erratically, casting fleeting shadows that danced in the periphery of their vision. The air grew colder, the ground muddier, and their hearts heavier with the weight of impending doom. Their search led them deeper into the heart of the forest, where the darkness seemed to swallow all traces of light and hope. Amidst the relentless rain, they stumbled upon an old, dilapidated mansion, its imposing facade looming like a monstrous sentinel in the night. Its windows were shattered, its walls adorned with decaying ivy, and its entrance shrouded in a veil of mist. Reluctantly, they approached the mansion, their unease intensifying with each step closer to its foreboding entrance. "We shouldn't go in there," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "We have to find James," Mark retorted, his tone resolute but betraying a hint of uncertainty. Celia, her jaw clenched with determination, pushed the door open with a creak, revealing a dark and cavernous interior. The stench of rot and decay permeated the air, and the flickering light from their flashlights revealed the remnants of an opulent past now consumed by neglect and time. They traversed the labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps echoing through the hollow halls. Shadows danced on the walls, contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to watch their every move. The mansion exuded an otherworldly energy, an unsettling amalgamation of past regrets and present terrors. As they delved deeper into the mansion's depths, they stumbled upon a decaying staircase that led to an ominous basement. The air grew thicker, suffused with a palpable malevolence that made their skin crawl. Reluctantly, they descended into the abyss, their breaths shallow and their grip on reality tenuous at best. In the bowels of the basement, they discovered a chamber adorned with archaic symbols and occult artifacts. A flickering candle cast an eerie glow on the walls, revealing intricate sigils etched into the stone floor. At the center of the chamber lay a weathered tome, its pages laden with forbidden knowledge and unspeakable secrets. Celia's eyes widened as she deciphered the text, her voice quivering as she read aloud the ritual of a long-forgotten cult that had once thrived in the very heart of the forest. The cult had delved into the darkest depths of the occult, invoking malevolent forces that had since become bound to the mansion, eternally seeking to feed on the souls of the unsuspecting. Before they could comprehend the gravity of their discovery, a haunting wail reverberated through the chamber, freezing them in their tracks. From the shadows emerged a spectral figure, its ethereal form contorted with an insatiable hunger for the living. It loomed over them, its ghastly visage contorting into an expression of torment and malice. "We should never have come here," Sarah whimpered, her voice barely audible. The entity's wail intensified, its icy breath sending shivers down their spines. In a frenzied panic, they attempted to flee, but the mansion seemed to twist and contort, its corridors elongating into a labyrinth of eternal damnation. Their flashlights flickered and died, leaving them engulfed in an impenetrable darkness that swallowed all hope. Celia's fingers grazed the walls as she desperately sought an escape, her mind reeling with the realization that they had stumbled into the clutches of a force far beyond their comprehension. In the darkness, the whispers grew louder, their sinister tones converging into a cacophony of despair and madness. "We have to find a way out," Mark pleaded, his voice betraying a hint of hysteria. But the entity's presence was suffocating, its wail reverberating through the very fabric of their being. They stumbled and fell, their bodies bruised and their spirits shattered. Each breath felt like a struggle against an invisible force that sought to consume them whole. As they reached the limits of their sanity, a faint glimmer of light appeared in the distance, beckoning to them like a lifeline in the suffocating abyss. With their last vestiges of strength, they clawed their way towards the light, their minds teetering on the brink of oblivion. With a surge of determination, they burst through the decaying entrance of the mansion, their bodies drenched and their souls scarred by the horrors they had witnessed. The storm still raged, but the air felt lighter, the weight of the mansion's malevolence fading into the shadows of the forest. As they staggered back to the cottage, they realized that James was nowhere to be found, lost to the sinister depths of the mansion's cursed embrace. In the wake of their harrowing ordeal, they vowed to never speak of the horrors that had unfolded on that fateful, rain-drenched night, haunted by the knowledge that some terrors were better left buried in the darkest corners of the human psyche. And so, the legend of the haunted mansion endured, whispered in hushed tones by those who dared to venture into the heart of the forest on a true rainy night, where the boundary between the living and the dead blurred into an eternal dance of despair and madness. Story 2. The rain fell in a relentless torrent, drenching the narrow streets of the forgotten village as the night cloaked everything in an ominous shroud. In the heart of the desolate town stood an abandoned mansion, its weathered facade a testament to the forgotten glories of the past. Inside, 5 friends sought shelter from the tempest, their nerves taut with anticipation as the storm's ghostly whispers seemed to echo through the creaking halls. Nora, a spirited artist with an affinity for the unknown, was the first to notice the peculiarities of the night. As she traced the faded wallpaper with a hesitant touch, her senses prickled at the faint whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the mansion. Her breath quickened, and she glanced at her friends, their expressions mirroring her growing unease. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the raging downpour. The others, Daniel, Emily, Liam, and Maya, exchanged wary glances, their eyes darting around the dimly lit room, searching for any sign of the elusive whispers that now seemed to envelop them in a spectral embrace. "I didn't hear anything," Liam said, his voice attempting to mask his own apprehension. but even his skepticism wavered as the shadows danced on the walls, their movements synchronized with the ethereal murmurs that coalesced into a chorus of long-forgotten secrets and lost souls. Emily shivered, her gaze fixated on the ancient portrait hanging askew on the wall. That painting, it feels like it's watching us. Nora's fingers traced the outline of the portrait, her touch eliciting an unsettling chill that seemed to seep into her very bones. The figure in the painting bore a striking resemblance to the stern-faced woman in the village's folklore, a tragic soul whose restless spirit was said to haunt the mansion, forever searching for a way to escape its earthly confines. As the night deepened, the whispers evolved into a spectral symphony that resonated through the mansion's forgotten corridors. The group exchanged uneasy glances, their hearts pounding in their chests as they braved the labyrinthine halls in search of the source of the haunting whispers. Their journey led them to an overgrown library, its shelves laden with ancient tomes and weathered manuscripts. The air was thick with the musty scent of aged parchment, and the flickering candlelight cast elongated shadows that danced on the walls like macabre phantoms. Daniel, the pragmatic voice of reason in the group, plucked a faded journal from the shelf, its pages yellowed with age and its text written in a cryptic language. As he attempted to decipher the enigmatic script, a spectral gust of wind tore through the room, sending the pages fluttering in a frenzy of unearthly whispers. Nora's eyes widened with recognition as she deciphered the symbols etched into the journal, her voice trembling as she read aloud the account of a forbidden ritual that had consumed the mansion in a maelstrom of dark energy and restless spirits. The ritual had sought to bridge the gap between the living and the dead, but its consequences had bound the mansion to an eternity of spectral torment and unresolved sorrow. Before they could fully comprehend the gravity of their discovery, the whispers coalesced into a haunting chorus, their voices reverberating through the very fabric of the mansion's existence. A spectral figure emerged from the shadows, its ethereal form contorted with an ancient agony that defied the passage of time. "We need to leave," Maya pleaded, her voice quivering with fear. But the mansion seemed to twist and contort, its corridors elongating into a labyrinth of eternal damnation. Their flashlights flickered and died, leaving them engulfed in an impenetrable darkness that seemed to seep into their very souls. Amidst the suffocating abyss, they clung to each other, their hearts racing in their chests as they struggled to resist the malevolent forces that sought to consume them whole. Each breath felt like a battle against an unseen adversary, their minds teetering on the brink of insanity as the mansion's spectral inhabitants closed in on them. In a desperate bid for survival, they chanted fragments of the journal's forbidden ritual, their voices mingling with the ghostly echoes that reverberated through the very fabric of the mansion's existence. With a surge of determination, they willed the spirits to recede, their collective energy forming a barrier of light that repelled the darkness and banished the tormented souls back into the shadows. As dawn broke through the remnants of the storm, the mansion's oppressive aura lifted, leaving behind only a lingering sense of melancholy and resignation. They emerged from the mansion, their bodies bruised and their spirits scarred by the horrors they had faced. In the wake of their harrowing ordeal, they vowed to keep the secrets of the mansion buried in the depths of their memories, haunted by the realization that the boundary between the living and the dead was far more tenuous than they could have ever imagined. Story 3. The rain hammered against the windows of the remote cabin, the relentless downpour casting an eerie pall over the desolate landscape. Inside, Sarah and Jake huddled by the crackling fireplace, seeking solace in the warmth that seemed to wane with each flicker of the dying embers. The storm had cut off all communication with the outside world, leaving them isolated and vulnerable to the whims of the tempest. As they exchanged nervous glances, a faint tapping sound resonated from the door, the rhythmic beats echoing through the cabin like a haunting melody. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, her eyes widening with a mix of fear and curiosity. Jake rose cautiously, his footsteps muffled by the creaking floorboards as he approached the door. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice quivering with unease. But no response came, only the incessant tapping that seemed to grow more urgent with each passing moment. With a trembling hand, Jake reached for the doorknob, his pulse quickening as he swung the door open to reveal an empty, rain-drenched night. The only sound was the ghostly howl of the wind, carrying with it a sense of foreboding that tightened its grip on their already frayed nerves. Sarah peered over Jake's shoulder, her gaze fixated on the impenetrable darkness beyond the doorstep. There's nobody there. It must be the storm playing tricks on us. But even as she spoke, a chill slithered down her spine, her instincts warning her of an unseen presence lingering just beyond the reach of the flickering lamplight. The tapping persisted, now emanating from within the cabin itself, its source elusive and unsettling. As they retreated to the sanctuary of the fireplace, the tapping evolved into a spectral rapping that reverberated through the walls, its rhythm mimicking the palpitations of a tormented heart. Shadows danced across the room, their movements synchronized with the spectral echoes that seemed to seep into the very fabric of their surroundings. "We need to leave," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the din of the storm. Jake nodded, his expression etched with a grim determination. Together, they braved the torrential rain, their footsteps splashing in the muddy ground as they sought refuge in a nearby abandoned barn. The rain intensified, its relentless onslaught creating an impenetrable curtain that obscured their vision and muffled their senses. Within the confines of the dilapidated barn, the tapping continued, its echoes mingling with the pitter-patter of the raindrops that seeped through the decaying roof. Sarah and Jake huddled in the musty darkness, their bodies shivering with a bone-deep cold that seemed to emanate from the very walls around them. With each passing moment, the tapping transformed into a symphony of spectral whispers, their words indecipherable yet laden with an otherworldly urgency that tugged at the boundaries of their sanity. Sarah clutched Jake's hand, her knuckles white with tension as they braced themselves against the encroaching darkness. A flicker of light appeared in the distance, illuminating the barn with an ethereal glow that seemed to repel the shadows and silence the haunting whispers. Sarah and Jake exchanged a glance, their shared relief palpable in the dimly lit space. But as they ventured closer to the source of the light, their hearts sank at the realization that it emanated from a lone lantern swaying in the wind, its glow casting elongated shadows that danced on the walls like a macabre puppet show. The tapping resumed, its tempo quickening into a frenzied crescendo that shattered the fragile illusion of safety. In a panic, Sarah and Jake fled into the unforgiving night, their screams blending with the relentless downpour as they vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only a haunting echo of their spectral encounter, a testament to the enduring power of the storm to awaken the dormant spirits that lingered on the fringes of the living world.